Perfect. Thank you very much, Mike. I'll switch over here to the presentation. And I do want to say thank you, Mike, and thank you to everyone here at IIMS organizing this event. It's quite something to host this and put something like this together, and the organization of this and the planning shouldn't be overlooked at all. And as well as each of the presenters that have come before and then coming after me, for their time sharing their knowledge and experiences. We all very much appreciate that. And I'd also like to give a quick thank you out to all of the viewers here participating and watching this. I know you're taking time out of your busy schedule to sit and give your attention and time to these presenters and continue your education. And I want to say that that's very much appreciated by all. And I hope what I have to say and show you here can also bring some value to your survey process. And with that, I will switch over here to the presentation and begin by saying that, again, my name is Craig Norton. I'm joining here from Florida in the US, and I've lived on board vessels of one type or another for most of my life, and certainly much longer than the time that I spent on solid ground. I'm a second-generation marine surveyor myself, a currently active marine surveyor. I hold a 200-ton commercial captain's license, and I'm also a Y3 licensed chief engineer. But more importantly, I'm here to talk with you about your survey process. And I hope to offer a solution for improving and saving time on every single survey assignment using a program that, just as Mike described, is designed by surveyors, for surveyors, and specifically for your survey inspection. And I designed the software program for completing your entire report in the field. And this is the first and only marine report writing software designed like this. And we call it InspectX because it's so flexible, you can almost inspect anything. And the way we complete this report in the field is we use a touchscreen tablet to enter data in the field rather than handwritten notes. And I do want to say that, guys, I am not a salesman or a marketing specialist. I'm a surveyor just like any of you. And I'm only here because I developed the software out of a necessity in my own life. And it's to a problem that so many of us simply accept as being part of the job. And the solution is so effective. It's beginning to spread like wildfire in the surveying community. And I think by the end of this little presentation, you'll also begin to understand why. So there is a problem with the marine survey process, and we all know it well. It's the time that we spend writing reports. Over and over, I hear from surveyors who love their job, but hate the late nights writing reports. And while some take a little longer or shorter, the average time spent writing each report is about an hour at home for every hour spent out in the field. What we have to realize is that this method of taking handwritten field notes and then transcribing these notes back in the office is duplicating our work. We write in that information twice. So let's just take a brief look at some of the ways that we collect information while we're out in the field. And for some people, this is everything: a notepad, pen, and a camera. But the problem with this is that it's almost impossible to remain consistent, and you open yourself up to a world of liabilities and possible omission risks. So what a lot of us do is we then create a specific list of tailored notes, custom field notes. And oftentimes we'll have pages and pages like this, and we'll carry this out in the field and flip the pages to get to the specific heading to begin entering that information. And this is a great plan. This is probably the method that most of us use when we go out into the field along with the camera. But the problem with this is, and something that most of us have had experience with, is these notes will get wet, dirty, torn, smudged, but even worse than all of those, and worse because this happens every single time, these notes come back looking like this. And very quickly, we've got pages and pages of chicken scratch scrawl that we've got to then try to transcribe at home. This would just be a burden. I would dread coming home at the end of the day to begin writing the report because I had pages and pages of notes like this. And I think this is something that many surveyors can really relate with because we're all in the same boat with this. And all of this changed for me about 4 years ago when I learned that I could complete my entire survey report while out in the field. And since that time, I have not sat behind my desk to write a report. And I'm going to show you a small section of a sample report that was developed entirely or created entirely while in the field, because I want to just work backwards from here. I want to show you the quality that we're talking about, and then we can go back into how we create this in the field. Um, I know that if I were sitting in your place watching something like this, someone telling you, oh, you can create the entire report in the field, my skeptical brow may raise. And I would think that any suggestion of saving time in the process comes at the compromise or sacrifice of the quality of my report. And I do want to bring out that we have far too much liability and responsibility to compromise anywhere in our survey report. If anything, we should be striving to add more value and more effort at every turn. So the key of what I want to talk about today is not about compromising, but rather a solution to working more efficiently. And I'm going to show you how we created the full version of the sample pages that I've just shown you here, and which can then give you the option of completing this entire survey report in the field. In order to do this, I do want to break down the basic structure and parts of a survey report. And this is a common survey report layout, and I've studied a lot of these, whether you're doing this in Word or Excel or using a common program. The basic structure of a survey report remains the same. And that is that we'll often have specific categories. And we have here vessel construction, we may have the bottom inspection or safety equipment, different categories to jump through the report. And within each category, we may have subcategories. Like here we can see hull arrangement. We may have bridge arrangement or superstructure arrangement. And then from there, we have a number of different headings. And obviously the content we place inside those headings is what we want to show. We may bolster this by adding photographs and images. And equally important to creating the inventory and describing the condition of the equipment on board is to create a findings report. Now that's a primary function of our assignments when we go out, is to then develop a list of deficiencies throughout the vessel. When you do this with Word or any other word processing program, organizing these deficiencies can be quite cumbersome. With software, and really any software, this is a whole lot easier when you can categorize your deficiencies by priority. In this case, we use a 3-tiered primary system, with A being the first or safety level priority deficiencies. B are deficiencies that require attention in a timely manner. It could be 30 days or 60 days, whatever time value you set to that. And C level findings are simply cosmetic or surveyor notes and observations. Again, organizing these findings in a Word document and trying to keep them numbered and accounted for is very, very difficult and time consuming. But with software, this allows us to neatly organize and present these findings. And the presenting of them is very important. So let's just briefly look at a findings report. So we'll just scroll through a few pages here. And again, I'm not here to try and show you what should be included in a report. I know you are all very well versed in that already. But the purpose of this is to show you a few pages of this quality finished final product, because I want you to know that what we're working towards here is a quality finished product. It's something that you could be proud of, that your clients would be appreciative to receive, and this isn't cutting or compromising on any corners. And I should also mention that this concept that I'm talking about here today, it wasn't developed as a business venture or anything. This was created entirely out of necessity in my own life. As my business grew and my assignments grew, there was no way to keep up with the demand. And when I had my handwritten field notes and I came back to my office desk at the end of the day, I would sit here and my wife would feed me dinner in front of my computer just so that I could reach the 50% point of my handwritten notes. And if I could reach 50% by midnight, I knew I was well on the mark and where I needed to be, and I would get up the next morning and start a new survey assignment. By the time the weekend came, I had a backlog of surveys I was trying to finish and complete. And this cycle continued for a long time before I realized something had to change. And I started thinking about the layout of those, the structure of the survey report that we just talked about. And I thought, if I could structure this in a way that I could make these entries in the field just as fast as taking handwritten notes, I could eliminate that whole need of duplicating my effort. And that's where we began trying to develop a draft layout, something like you see here, where we could develop some way, if we could navigate quickly. We knew there was 2 parts to this. We had needed to be able to navigate quickly to find any heading. You can imagine with a Word document, just trying to scroll through your pages, that would be inefficient, searching for a specific heading to make and entries. So we had to have a layout that would allow us to navigate very quickly to any area of our report, and then to make an entry as fast as writing it by hand. So with that being said, please let me introduce to you InspectX, the first and only marine report writing software designed to complete an entire survey report while in the field. And when I say completing, I mean that's inventory, the observations, your notes, your findings and recommendations, everything. When I get home, I do my market value research, I review the report, and then it's ready to be sent to the client. Now, a lot of people ask me, how does this work carrying a computer or a tablet in the field? And honestly, the switch is surprisingly easy. Instead of carrying a clipboard with my handwritten notes in the field, I carry this tablet. Instead of writing on the pages, I'm making those entries directly at the fields on the tablet, right on site, right when I see it. We're not the first to think of this concept. Many have tried before because when they know that when this works, the benefits and time savings are simply unquestionable. And like I mentioned, if you've ever tried this before, if you've ever tried to take Word or another program that wasn't specifically designed for use in the field, you spend more time trying to work on the computer than actually surveying the vessel. And I wanted to remove that out. I wanted the software to follow your survey process that you already do. It needs to work as seamlessly, if not better, than those handwritten notes. So let's take a look at how some of these things can work. And again, I'll make a point here. The two things we needed to cover: navigate to any heading faster than flipping the pages of those field notes, and then to make an entry at that area faster than writing it by hand. So let's take a look at how InspectX achieves this. From the ground up, InspectX is designed with you as the surveyor in mind, what you need to see while you're in the field at the time of the survey. And you can see this with the dark background and bright contrasting buttons that stand out on the screen. Everything is designed around the fact that you need to be able to use touch input and quickly work your way through. This dark background with bright colors aids the computers of today, which are already very good in bright sunlight, but this bright contrast helps that stand out even more. The program is designed with these large buttons so that there's no need for a mouse or a keyboard in order to make your movements and entries through here. Everything can be done by touch. So let's take a look at the first thing we talked about, how we can navigate through the report faster than flipping the pages. And at the very top of the screen here, this is our categories. And if you remember that little structure of the report we talked about, where we showed the construction, each category here stands for a section of the report that you may want to jump to. And when you click on any one of these categories, the buttons below change to reflect the content of that category that you're in. And by that, it allows you, with a single press, to jump to any section of the report. And it doesn't matter whether you write a 500-page report or a 20-page report. You can still jump between those sections just as easily. And all of the content, I should also mention this, all of the buttons, the categories, the layout, the ordering, how it's said, that's all yours to customize and configure. All of this is completely flexible to customize to the way that you lay out your reports. And you can reorder these simply by dragging and dropping or renaming or creating new buttons and headings. To visually show you how the layout that we've seen here relates to a final report, what I want to do is we'll draw your attention here to the category that we currently have selected, and that is at the top here, safety category. And we're going to slide in a sample of a finished report, and we'll have a number of things dimmed out just so that we can focus on the specifics of what we're talking about here. And I want you to notice that we have the safety category, its name exactly as it's placed right here at the top of that report. The subcategory, the section that we're in, translates exactly to the subcategory in that final report. And you can see we have throwable PFDs highlighted over here, and that's the highlighted button right in that final report. So they all translate exactly to the order of that final report. And now when you understand that layout and how this is all shown, you can see that just by looking at this layout, this represents the exact headings and content that you would have in your final report. So next I want to jump into the colors that we're seeing on the page here. And these are our main colors that we've seen for all these buttons. And the color is a wonderful thing because it helps to show us the level of completeness of every single heading throughout the report. And an easy way to understand the meaning of each of these colors is if I were to draw an analogy to a traffic light. And any of those red buttons that you see there, those ones are simply not started. So they're indicating that there is no content here, and I may want to put some information into this particular heading. The yellow buttons are in progress, and the in progress buttons are a valuable tool. And this grew even more so the more we started using the software in the field. There's very many times where I would take handwritten notes before using the software, and I may fill in perhaps the port engine serial number. And I would say, well, the starboard engine, I need to crawl back around that place to be able to get that information. So I'll continue working here outboard on the port engine. When I scan my notes, it's very easy to forget that I was intended to collect that starboard engine serial number. And as I scan through those notes, I may forget and leave that particular heading out. With the software, I can mark that as in progress. It turns yellow and serves as a visual reminder that I need to go back and complete information at that heading. So I'm in full control of choosing when I mark something as complete or leave something as in progress. Moving on from there, I've alluded to this one already. The green items are the ones that are completed. You can still go back and make changes to anything that's complete. This is yours to customize. This is your survey report. But when you visually mark something as complete, it serves as a reminder that you've cleared this one, you've checked it, you're happy with the way it's written, and you're ready to move on. And finally, the gray buttons that you see are not applicable. These are the ones that you've chosen not to be included in this particular survey report. And if we take this same concept and we look back at our 4 buttons, at a simple glance, I can see that EPIRB is green and completed. I can see that man overboard system there at the top right is in progress. I've entered some information and it's waiting for a possible check or to see all of the other areas that may need to be inspected for that heading. That fire alarm system is marked as not applicable. Perhaps this vessel doesn't have one. And that firefighting system does not yet have any information in it. When I expand that concept out and I look at the entire report or the entire layout, an amazing thing happens because now I can see the exact level of progress of where I am in the survey report. I can see a number of headings up here that are green and completed, a number that are waiting for information. And when I look at the very top, I can see those main categories, and a number of those are green and complete. I know those whole sections are done. And I can even see 2 up there that have no content in them at all. And this serves as a little incentive for me to say, oh, well, I need to spend a little bit more time in that area of the vessel to kind of make some headway. So the next thing to talk about is how do we change the status of these buttons? How do we change these colors? And to do that, we're going to click onto any button so that we can get in and see how we make these entries. So after I click into a button, this is my button entry page. And at the very top of that page are our status buttons. You can see here, we can cancel, leave without saving anything, and then the not applicable, incomplete, and complete buttons to change the status of these headings. Beneath that, we have our entry value window. And whatever we type in this window, that's what's going to be included in the final report. This third part, this is important now because this completes the second part that we talked about making an entry faster than writing it by hand. And what you have here is a huge list, and this is your list to customize. You put your phrases and sentences or observations here in these quick insert options, and you can insert an entire phrase simply by clicking on it. This allows you to be much more consistent and accurate with your survey reports. It helps with better grammar and better way of presenting it because you can write something the way you intended to one time and then reuse that each time you come across that same event. So that's the way that we're able to make these entries faster than writing them by hand. And of course, you can always edit something that you've added in here. And if you have a computer with a keyboard attached to it, you could simply click in the entry value and change what it is for this specific vessel. If you're using a touchscreen device, you would simply tap your finger right in the entry value, and the on-screen keyboard would pop right up. And you begin making it, either writing an entry from scratch or modifying one that you have already in your quick insert phrases. If your computer's capable of it, you could use handwriting to text recognition and input it just by handwriting right on the screen. Or you could use voice to text dictation through common programs, some that are built in with the computer, or drag in dictation. You could just dictate right into that specific heading. And all of these are methods that aid or will improve and be better than just writing them by hand on a piece of paper. The next thing to talk about here is we mentioned about creating the deficiencies and how important that was to the process of our survey here. So at the very top right, I'll draw your attention here to the A, B, and C. And if you remember, this translates to the A, B, and C priority levels of the findings that we talked about earlier. When I click on either one of those, I'm taken to the findings and recommendations page. And this is very similar to the previous one. At the top of the page, I have the status buttons. I can change it. I can either exit without saving, or click save to save this particular heading. And in the findings pane, which is this one here on the left, whatever I type here, that is the finding that's going to be included in this report. And to the right of that window is the recommendation. And the interesting thing is, when I click between the finding and the recommendation, the quick insert options below will change to reflect and help guide me to the most likely phrase that I want to input at that heading. Anytime that I want, I can change the priority of this. And this is a whole lot easier than in Word or in a Word text program, where if I were to reorder something from an A to a B, I would have to restructure and renumber everything. Here in software, I can just simply click the B or the C to highlight it and change the priority level if I later found that I didn't need to keep this as an A. When I'm done with this, I simply click Save, and I'm right back to continue working through to find another item or inventory in the survey report. Now, as you work through the day in the survey and you get most, or if not all, of these things green, the next important thing to do is we can have a meeting with our client. And when I had my handwritten field notes, what I used to do is I used to put little asterisks in the margin in places of the heading where I wanted to have the discussion at the end of the day with the client and talk about that particular heading. Maybe it was a deficiency or something that I wanted to bring to his attention. And what was virtually impossible when I did this was to have this ordered in some semblance where I could present him in the order of priority. I may be going from something that was cosmetic to then jumping to a high priority important thing, and I wasn't relaying the information in the best way possible to my client. While with software, I could now present the entire list of all of my deficiencies in one place. And even better, I could filter that list. And I could say, show me just the A's. And in this case, now I can click into each of these and present each of these in the order of priority that I've got them in my report. And I could then just click onto the B's and talk about all of the findings needing timely attention. And then if we had time during that, we could then move on to the purely cosmetic or surveyor observation notes. So I've got a nice way to present at the end of the day, right then and there to my client, and show him the specific findings and deficiencies that were brought up during that day. Well, now we've finished for the day and we head home. And the next most important thing is to be able to review the report. And this stands true whether we've written it in Word or Excel or any program at all. The review afterwards is so important. I know, at least for myself, how many times and errors I've found correcting just after a review of a report. So I wanted to make a way that we could review and really take the time to go through and make sure that what we put was what we intended. And we have here a review mode right built into the software. And you can see we've got all of the categories and sections broken down, and you can expand all of these and simply scroll through to be able to see everything that you've written in these headings, all the pictures you've taken, the content that you've put, and at any point you can click in here and begin making edits and changes to them. So it allows a very quick and easy way to continue reviewing before even publishing it into a PDF document at the end. The software itself is tailored to show you just what you need to see at the time when you need it most. Rather than putting everything in front of you, we want to just show you the bare necessities for the task that you have right in front of you. And I thought now would be a good time. What we're going to do is to have a little fun with this. I thought we'd do a little bit of a live demonstration. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump on board, pretend like we're stepping on board a vessel, and we'll work our way through a couple of making some entries live in the software right here. So the first one I thought I'd do is something that's common to all of us, something that we're most likely to see or should be recording in our survey reports to ensure that it is on board, and that may be the MARPOL trash placard here. All vessels are required to have one, so it's just a matter of finding it and maybe recording where it is, or at least maybe serving as a reminder for ourselves to even check if this boat had it displayed. So we'll slide over here to my own version of the software that I have running on my computer here. And you can see I've got all my categories at the top. And we're going to jump to make the entry for that. So I'm going to click on Safety Category. And I can see here's the button for Trash Disposal Placard. And it's red. It's reminding me that I need to check for it and look for it. And to make an entry, I simply click on that button. And here I have the entry window. I could just begin typing, or I can look through my list and find the most appropriate finding that I may want to put in here, or most appropriate entry. And I could just make that first selection. Here's the MARPOL garbage placard, and I could say it was properly displayed. In this case, it says the galley, but I could change that. I'm not locked into that. If I wanted to say engine room, I could simply change whatever phrase or portion. And even making an adjustment like that is still considerably faster than writing that whole phrase out by hand, even if I were writing it in shorthand and abbreviating. Once I'm done with that, I would just click complete. And you can see now that trash placard has turned green, and that entry is done. Pretty quick and easy. Let's take a look at another one here. We'll jump back into the layout, and let's try a different one. Here's another common thing that we're often seeing on vessels, and that would be an EPIRB. And you may write in your report whether there's one on board. You may write whether it was in date or its condition. So we're going to do a few things just like that. We're going to record the specific type. So I'm noticed here that it's a Global Fix Pro. So I want to make sure I make that entry just the same. Again, you may write just EPIRB, but because it's so easy to make a selection in my list, I can be pretty specific about what I've seen on board. So my EPIRB is also still in the safety category, and I can see it right down here is the button for EPIRB. When I click on that, excuse me, I have my whole list of common EPIRBs that I see all the time. And when I come across a new one, I simply add it to this list. It's very easy at any point in time just to click plus and add in a new phrase or new item so that my list continues to grow right while I'm working on board a boat. And if I come across something new, I add it to this list and I can retrieve it on any other vessel in the future. Well, in this case, it was that ACR Global Fix Pro, so I can make that entry. But I'm not limited to one entry only. I can add in now a good description for its condition. And as I gave that a test to prove that it powered up and did its functional test, I could now make another line that says its functional test was demonstrated. And I may want to give a little more information. Perhaps I want to say that the battery inspection, what date it was valid until, or if it was expired, I would then create a deficiency for it. And I'm not locked into that specific date. I can change it. We'll say maybe it was 2022. And then I could also offer some good little recommendations. If the vessel was a pre-purchase, I may want to suggest to the new owner that he re-register this EPIRB under new ownership. And just like that, with just simple clicks, I've developed a paragraph and a phrase that's tailored specifically to this vessel. And it allows me to modify anything I want here, but I've created something customized to this vessel. And again, all these phrases are yours to adjust, and you can reword this the way that you see fit. When I'm happy with that, I simply click complete, and now we can see that the EPIRB button is green, and I've marked it as complete. Let's jump back in here, and let's do another one together here. All right, so in this image, at the very top here, I have a 12-volt electrical outlet. And I place my tester inside so I can prove that it has voltage, and I can see it's proven there with 13.6 volts. And in the picture below is a freshwater pump. It's a Mach 5 by Headhunter, and I can see on the data tag that it's a 230-volt pump. You may just say freshwater pump in your reports, but I like to be specific since I can so easily just make that selection. So in this case, I'm going to describe that as a 230-volt Mach 5 pump. So sliding into the report, we'll start with that electrical outlet, and I'll click up here into the electrical category. And I see here DC power outlets as an option for me to click on. And when I select that here, I've got a whole list of common phrases that I put in here. And the top one looks pretty accurate. It's a 12-volt outlet. It looks like it was at the helm. And it tested with 13.6 volts. So I'll simply just change that entry, and that one's done. Really, that's how quick and easy it is to make an entry when you see it. And that, to me, that's faster than writing it by hand on notes. The next one we saw was that freshwater pump. So I'll click here to the category that contains my freshwater pump. And right here I can see is the last remaining entry in this category, and I'll click right into freshwater pumps. And now I've got a whole list of common pumps that I see all the time on boats. And this particular one we said was a Mach 5 and it was a 230 volt. Here's at 115. I could easily choose one of these and change the voltage easily, but because I see them so frequently, I just have both of them in here, make that selection. And now I may want to describe the condition of the pump. And I could then make another line that says it was powered up and demonstrated without fault. Just like that, freshwater pump, done and entered. Now you can see that whole category has turned green, indicating that I finished everything that I set out to achieve here in freshwater systems. So that's really how easy it is to make entries as we work in our way through. So I thought another thing we could maybe do here is we could create some deficiencies. So I've got a page here, and we've got some common deficiencies we see all the time on board. And the first one, we've got a chain that's made fast to the vessel, some burnt pins on electrical, shore power cord, the windlass that's heavily corroded, and a crazed nav light. Well, let's just choose, for the sake here, we'll choose number 2. And let's say we're going to make a finding related to the burnt pins on the shore power cord. We'll jump back here to the software. And I know my shore power cords are under my electrical category. So I'll select electrical category. And I have here the button for shore power cords. You can see in the inventory, I've labeled it as a 50 amp shore power cord. It was pretty dirty on there, so I made a little comment about it needing it clean. But that's not worth a finding in my opinion. So I'd come up here though, where we want to make the deficiency about the burnt pin. And that could cause a fire. So in my opinion, I'm going to create that as an A finding here. And again, I've got my list of common phrases. Perhaps the boot was pulled adrift. Perhaps there was a slice in the cable and I wanted to make mention of that. All of my common phrases would be right here. But in this case, we could just simply make the first item, which looks pretty accurate to this whole deficiency that we've seen. And it looks like there's past overheating burn markings on that pin. And if I click the recommendation, you'll notice that this list below here is now going to change to show me the recommendations. And again, these are yours to customize. So you can create your own recommendations, your own phrases, the way that you want something said, and save it into this list just the same. And here, I can make a selection that I feel is appropriate, where I'd want to investigate the cause of the overheating and address it as necessary. I may suggest replacing that pin or rebuilding the plug. We can click Save. And just like that, we've got a 1A finding related to this heading. And when I complete this now, we can see that shore power cords over here has a finding onto it, and that particular heading is completed. And that's how easy it is to create a deficiency as you're working your way through. We'll choose one more here. Let's see, maybe we'll go to the next page. I've got a few of them here, but I don't want to drag this on too much. But we're having fun here. I'm having fun here. So let's do one more. And let's select item number 3 here. We can see if I've got one for a high water alarm. Whoops, that went too far. I've got one for a high water alarm over here. Want some corrosion on hose clamps. This one here is a broken handle on a seacock, and then a wing nut on a battery. But we'll choose this broken valve stem handle as an example to complete here. So again, I reordered the layout of that particular button in a place where I know I can retrieve the button for seacocks where I place it. And for me, I place it right under here under propulsion and machinery spaces, because in those build spaces that I always find these seacocks. So here I have that particular heading right here. And when I click on this, I can now describe the valve itself. So we can make that entry. I'll say, well, they're a bronze alloy ball valve. That's exactly what I saw over there. I can make little comments about regular exercise and lubrication on those valves. I can make a little comment about regular disassembly and cleaning is recommended. And I can even put a little common recommendation that I want included in every report about suggesting wooden plugs attached to those. Now, if I did find wooden plugs, I would just delete that portion of the phrase. But in most cases, I'm always recommending that they do put that there just for good boater practice. But in this case, we're going to talk about the deficiency of finding here. And I'll select the priority level. And this one, probably an A again. So I'll select the A. And I've got a number of common deficiencies I see with my Seacock valves, and whether they were stiff or seized, or they were not built to ABYC standards and they wouldn't support a static test, whatever it would be, I could make that selection in that phrase, that customized phrase, the way that I've written it in the past. In this case, we'll select that it was the port main engine Seacock valve handle stem was broken. And if it was the starboard engine, I would change one word in here. Really pretty simple to do, and that again, faster than writing it by hand. To create a recommendation, I click on the recommendation, and the list now changes to represent the most common recommendations, and I could then make a selection, and that whole heading is done. I'm clicking Save at the top. Now I'm happy with that whole entry, and I'll click Complete. Seacock valves, information entered, and a finding created. So it's that easy, guys, to just move through your report, and really it's fluid and seamless. You see something, you enter it, you move on. Instead of the software guiding you through the headings to complete, you're conducting your survey as you would normally. And as you go through a space, you see, here's the fire extinguisher, here's a freshwater pump, and you make those entries or deficiencies as you move along. Jump back into the presentation. Now, you may have noticed that some of the headings in my example here made mention to U.S. Coast Guard standards. Obviously, those are the standards that I'm conducting, and this is obviously my survey software that we're looking at here. So I did want to just briefly show you how easy it is to adjust those. We'll jump back into my layout here, and I'll click into safety as an example. And you can see here it says safety U.S. Coast Guard. Well, I can right-click on this particular heading, and I can just make a change. And when you make this change, it's a global change. It's done for all your reports. And simply like that, now I've changed and I've removed the reference to U.S. Coast Guard. So depending in your region or the area where you're surveying, you can customize and tailor this for your survey reports. You may want to put MCA or Canadian Coast Guard or whatever the specific region you're in. You can change that with your relevant information. Good. So a software program does not make you a surveyor. It can't make you a better surveyor. That only comes through knowledge, experience, and mentorship. But just like any tool in your survey bag, the right software in the right hands can be extremely powerful. And I hope you see just how powerful a tool that this can be for your survey process. I want to jump into and talk about a few other features that we have with the software here. And the next one I wanted to bring up here is that multiple surveyors can work on the same report at the same time. Now, what this means is you may have one surveyor that's standing in the bridge, making entries of the bridge equipment, and you may have another in the engine room, and he's collecting information and data on the engines and machinery space. And both of these surveyors are building and compiling information into the same report, which means they can both see what the other has completed or has still yet to complete. The advantage to this is it prevents a situation where two surveyors may both think that the other has completed something and both of you walk away from the vessel having it missed. So this ensures that each thing always gets inspected and thoroughly checked, and it's not done until one of those parties go in there and click that heading as completed. That's great for a training tool. It's great for larger vessels and completing those. But even if you don't ever work as a team, this same networking ability is a tool that's useful for you at any point. And that is when you get home at the end of the day, you probably don't want to continue working on your report in a 10-inch or 12-inch tablet. You may have a proper desk with your keyboard that you're familiar with and that setup. And you don't have to transfer or move any files over in order to do that on your home desktop or your home setup. You simply, when I get home, I just take my field tablet and I plug it into the wall. And because it's connected to my home network, I can go to my home computer, and be that a Mac, Windows, doesn't make any difference. I can open it up and continue working on my report to perform my review or save the file as a PDF and send it to my client in my regular email program the way that I'm comfortable and familiar with. So a very valuable tool to be able to share that or network that software through there. In this presentation, we've covered only some of the top features of the software, and there's really so much more. but I did want to just recap on some of the key points of what this software will do for you. First and foremost, it will save you time. Most of my users, including myself, have seen a cut in 50% of our survey process. Because we're not duplicating our work, we can cut time quite considerably here. All of these things will increase the quality of your survey process, not necessarily your reports. I know we're all very proud of those, but the process itself, it allows us to ensure that we've achieved everything that we set out for ourselves that survey assignment day. These together will increase our profitability, and not just because we can finish one survey assignment and straight away move to the next the following day, but another interesting factor on this, one that I didn't realize or didn't consider in the very beginning, was how many times I would be approached throughout the course of a survey day working with a tablet in the field by brokers, by the client I was working for. And they were so impressed that I was bringing this latest technology out to this assignment, that when they could see that I had a clear game plan, that a very defined list of what I intended to collect, they were very impressed. And that impression stayed with them, and it generated new business for my company. So that was an unexpected turn of this increase in profitability that the software then afforded. That put together, because we have the clear defined game plan moving ahead, it reduced my liability. I have set out everything that I intended to. When a new standard or a new practice comes into play and I want to set a reminder for myself, I just create a new button and a new heading, and now every vote thereafter, I know I'm going to remember to check or do that particular action. And all of these things in a really user-friendly and easy package. All software requires some measure of learning curve, but this is really made as simple as possible, and I'm here to help you through these steps. I want to take a quick look at a final report, and we'll just let this scroll through in the background here. And I'll mention that when we first started this assignment, we did a lot of research to find how our clients were viewing their survey reports. And by a large margin, almost all of our clients were viewing this in some form of a digital viewer, be it a computer, a tablet, or even a phone. We wanted to bring the best experience possible to them in a PDF document to help them understand their report. So at any point while they're viewing the report here, they have a built-in table of contents that in a digital form right here in the software. So they can click into that table of contents and jump to any particular section in the report that they want. They can navigate, scroll through. In this case, we're going to click into the findings and recommendations section and jump straight down to that findings section of the report. And here we can see we've got all the findings nicely organized, well prioritized, photographs included in there, clearly laid out and defined. We're going to jump back to the body of our main report here again, and we'll just click into there. And I'll draw your attention to, down the bottom left there, we have an icon saying Finding C1. And that is a clear, bold indicator that we have a finding related to this heading. There's a couple of ways you can choose and customize how you want your findings displayed in the report. This is just one sample of that. But when you click on that Finding C1, it's actually a link built into the PDF that takes your client directly to that finding in the back of the report. And once they finish reading it, they can simply click the heading again, and it takes them back to the body of the report where they can continue reading. So this level of interactivity in the PDF file is a real polished and professional way that your client can view the report. And that's our whole goal, is to make this easy for our clients to see and decipher the information we've collected. If at this point you're excited about this and you're thinking you may want to give this a try, I've got some good news for you, because InspectX is free to download. Anyone can go onto our website and go ahead and download this. You can put this on as many computers as you want. There's no limitations to the licensing available. You can customize the layout and tailor it specifically to the way that you write your reports. You'll receive continued program updates and enhancements. As we create new features, they'll automatically be pushed out to you, and we don't charge for those updates and enhancements. You're going to receive email and telephone support. And here briefly, I just want to say, guys, please call me. I'm a surveyor just like you. I'm available, and I can make your life easier to learn and go through this. And I do work closely with almost all of our clients to do this. So you have an open line of communication. You'll have my contacts at the back of this presentation and easily received from Mike as well. Call me, and I will help steer you in finding the right tablet, getting the setup with your system, customizing the points to what you may need in here, or answering any other questions you have. So it's a valuable resource, and I do encourage you to please use that. You'll also receive a huge amount of detailed content included in this layout. And all of this just for $39 per report. This is not a monthly fee or subscription. You pay once per project, which means you can still go back and make changes without incurring another charge to that one. And this small publishing fee, it's less than the cost of a transcriptionist. And if it saves you even just 1 hour of the report time labor, it makes it worth it. And all of our users claim that this pretty much saves them half the time. So it's a guarantee there. And every time that you use it, you become more and more familiar with it, and your process simply becomes faster and faster. We're running short on time, so I'm not going to go into the detail of the tablet options. Suffice to just say that there are a number of options available for you. Tablets are much more affordable today. They're really designed for what we do. There's a lot of great options out there for us, and I encourage you to call me, and I'll help steer you through something that's very affordable and easy to use in your particular case. And oftentimes, a lot of these examples I've shown here are around the $300 to $400 range. So it really doesn't need to be an expensive purchase if you buy them refurbished, and I can help you through that portion of it. Armed with this new information, I want you to know that you have options to create a polished report entirely in the field, and no longer does this have to be you. InspectX solves a problem that so many of us know so intimately. And in an industry that's constantly requiring more and more from each of us, here's something that doesn't just help us meet that demand, but actually gives us something back in return. And that something is worth more than a small publishing fee, and that is your time. So everyone, thank you very much for your attention. Thank you for hanging and being part of this presentation, and thank you for your time.
Craig, thank you very much indeed. We have got a couple of minutes if people want to ask questions. So if anybody wants to either come on through the chat feature or unmute their microphone and ask Craig a specific question about what he's presented, then here's your opportunity. I think what I would add, Craig, is that even this year, as I've moved around the world, I was out in Australia, and there were 2 or 3 guys out in Australia saying they're using your software. I know there's guys down in Palma who are using your software. So, you know, this is not really just an American thing. This is an international product. I think the time that is required initially is the setting up for whichever part of the world you're operating in. I mean, that's where the initial time investment is. But once that's done, it's just then a case of maintaining it and updating it as you go along. But several people have said to me, you know, you're very approachable. You're always there to help and advise. And I think that's all part and parcel of it. And I think this is kind of the ultimate networking opportunity, really. So anybody want to ask questions? You've stunned them into silence, Craig.
Well, that's great. Thank you for that, Mike. And you're absolutely right. It has been a privilege sharing this experience, the software, with surveyors from all over the world and helping even new industries in the marine field, setting them up in their way. And that's been a privilege to do, and I enjoy that. That's part of, you know, instead of writing reports in the evening time now, I have my evenings to help other surveyors get themselves set up with the software, and I enjoy that process. So please, I do encourage everyone, reach out, take my contacts down, email or call me. If I'm not out on assignment, I get right back with you, and I can help you set this up in the way for your particular layout and regions and customize for your reports. So thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate that.
That's fine. Paul, I can see you've unmuted. Do you want to ask a question?
Yes. I might have missed 1 or 2 slides slightly towards the end because some customer took my attention. But we are entirely Macintosh based, and last slides I saw were all Windows PC based, but is it usable for Mac also? iPad? That's a good question there. The software itself is Windows based, so the tablet that you carry out into the field does need to be a Windows based tablet. Once you have that, I use a Mac at home. I'm presenting on a Mac computer right now, and all the demonstration I did on the software right from a Mac computer. So once you have the host on a Windows machine, you can then access it from any other computer, including a Macintosh. Okay,